Hare Rama, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Jindaki, Kamili Foundation Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur ki, Sababa Tabakti ki, Harinam Sankirtan ki, Bhagavatam ki, Jai all there is Samapati, all there is Samapati, all there is Samapati, all there is Sri Guru Jishiko Nanda, all there is Sri Prabhupada. Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyanjana Saranakana Tamsurimiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Sthapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Tadamaham Dadati Swapatati Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Gita Padakapalam Sri Gurum Vaisavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagadatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Cham Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Paritana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Sakanditam Scha Hare Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhani Sushiti Radhamani Hari Priya Vanchakalpatirudhyasya Kripasinudhya Evasya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Tiraya. Before reciting this Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a means of conquest and that is first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara Narayan Rishi, the supranational being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Sri Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayasabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhakti By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed and practicing the will and loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, whose praise with transcendental songs it becomes established as a durable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Samhitam Uttama Shloka Charitam Chakara Bhagavan Rishi Shreya Sayalokasya Dhamyam Swasyayanam Maha. The Srimad-Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, the Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Saradhyaya Namaha Om Saradhyaya Namaha Om Saradhyaya Namaha karoti vasarampa om nagayate kirim yatkipat mahapande Sri Vishnuvatana yatkipat mahapande Sri Vishnuvatana. Hare Krishna. Welcome everyone to our morning Bhagavatam class. Today we have chosen a verse from the 10th canto of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, chapter 11, which is entitled The Childhood Pastimes of Krishna. Text 37. Everyone will kindly repeat. Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yaschantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Sva Kalena Vasta Talau Babhuvatuhu Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yaschantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Svakalena Vatsa Palau Babhuvatuhu Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yaschantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Sakalena Vasta Palau Babhuvatuhu Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yaschantau Bala Chastitai Kala Vakyai Sakalena Vatsa Palau Babhuvatuhu.
Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yachantau Balachastitahai Kalavakyai Svakalena Vatsapala Babhuvatuhu
Evam Rajokasam Pritim Yaschantau Balachastitahai Kalavakyai Svakalena Vatsapala Babhuvatuhu. Evam. In this way, Raja Okasham to all the inhabitants of Raja, Pritim, pleasure, Yaschantau, giving, Bala Chastitai, by the activities and pastimes of childhood, Kalavakyai, and by very sweet broken language. Sakalena, in due course of time. Vatsapalau, to take care of the calves. Babhuvatuhu, were grown up. Translation purport by Divine Graces Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. Kindly repeat after me. In this way,
In this way,
Krishna and Balaram,
Krishna and Balaram,
acting like small boys
acting like small boys
and talking in half-broken language,
and talking in half-broken language,
gave transcendental pleasure
gave transcendental pleasure
to all the inhabitants of Braja.
to all the inhabitants of the earth.
In due course of time,
In due course of time,
they became old enough
they became old enough
to take care of the calves.
to take care of the
Report. As soon as Krishna and Balaram were a little grown up, they were meant for taking care of the calves. Although born of a very well-to-do family, they still had to take care of the calves. This was the system of education. Those who were not born in Brahmana families were not meant for academic education. The Brahmanas were trained in a literary academic education. The Kshatriyas were trained to take care of the state, and the Vaishyas learned how to cultivate the land and take care of the cows and calves. There was no need to waste time going to school to be falsely educated and later increase the numbers of the unemployed. Krishna and Balaram taught us by their personal behavior. Krishna took care of the cows and played his flute, and Balaram took care of agricultural activities with a plow in his hand. Translation again. In this way, Krishna and Balaram, acting like small boys and talking in half-broken language, gave transcendental pleasure to all the inhabitants of Braja. In due course of time, they became old enough to take care of the calves. As they say, short and sweet. I chose this verse this morning for purpose. In the purport especially, Srila Prabhupada is giving us very important insight as to what Vedic education is. Vedic education is completely different from what we know as modern education. And here we see two broad types of education. The one that Krishna and Balaram received when they were small boys in Vrindavan, that is known as or can be understood as non-formal education. And later on, actually, when they will leave Vrindavan and go to Mathura, Vasudeva and Devaki, the mother and father of Krishna, will send them, as we know, to Gurukula, isn't it? But when Krishna and Balaram are in Vrindavan, they don't go to Gurukula. They take up the activity of caring when they're just grown up. This section here is explaining what took place after Nanda Maharaj took all of the residents from Gokula and brought them to Vrindavan because of too many dangers, too many demons coming every day. Uh, and so they all transferred to Vrindavan. Uh, and here the text is explaining how when Krishna uh, grew up to be just a young boy, maybe 7 years of age or so, uh, he and Balaram began to take care of the calves. And although it's a very short statement that Srila Prabhupada makes, it's a very significant one. And if we just uh, continue reading, we may not, what is it? We may not grasp the significance that is being given here. Prabhupada just makes this very, seemingly simple statement, but it's a very profound one that Krishna and Balaram, along with the other cowherd boys, going every day, caring for the calves. This is Vedic education for those who are not Brahmanas. Because it's not only, of course, we know that Nanda Maharaj is the king of Vrindavan. He is playing the role of Vaishya king. But in the Bhagavatam, actually, it explains how uh, majority of people in a village generally, they will be helping those who are Vaishyas. When we begin to understand what makes up Vedic society, what is meant to be the natural lifestyle, what is meant to be the standard and natural occupation, which is actually agriculture, um, then we can begin to understand how this, for the vast majority of young boys, is actually the standard education that they receive. And we can't, I've been reading and trying to elaborate or further my own understanding of this particular verse, and specifically how, the question is, how can this be education? Going out in the field with cows or with calves, how can this be education? And we have to stop and ponder over this to understand that uh, education, especially at a young age, is more favorable, more easily taking place when one is in a natural environment. I mean, you can't have a more natural environment than going out in the fields with cows. It's, you're with nature. And there's all kinds of activities that are taking place. And in psychology, it is explained that actually it's very important for children to play and to interact with one another. This is mentioned actually by Srimad-Bhagavatam Thakur as well, when he talks about the process by which one should identify or select or fix up something very important we don't even think about within our society, uh, but it's mentioned by not only Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur but by Srila Prabhupada in his essay on Gita Nagari. Specifically, he explains how it is important to fix up the varna of an individual and young boys. And specifically, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions that this should be done before the age of 15. When we begin to think about And of course, beyond that, when we begin to actually live in such natural environment as we are meant to do, majority of us are actually meant to be living in this type of village, rural environment, because that is meant to be the standard in society. Then we can begin to understand what is meant to be the education for different members of society. Prabhupada mentions as a purport here how academic education is only meant for brahmanas. When the Vedic system or Vedic culture was in place, it was natural that those born in brahmana families actually would become qualified brahmanas. Of course, they would need to take the necessary education and training. So that means that actually a very small, very, very small percentage of the population would become brahmanas, and the majority would be engaged in what is called non-formal education. Now, we have non-formal education today uh, in terms of, it's called in most educational institutions, vocational training. Really. Uh, I don't know if they still call it that. When I was younger, vocational training, you go to some college or some institution where you get some kind of pick up some apprenticeship to become a carpenter or to become a welder or whatever it may be. Non-formal education is basically manual type of activity, which doesn't require so much of uh, intellectual understanding. I mean, uh, compared to, let's say, academic education, which requires many years of deep study and requires certain ability to grasp, especially matters of philosophy, is uh, what has in modern day society become less and less in terms of modern education. Modern education uh, has given, unfortunately, less and less importance to what we call humanities, arts, philosophy, uh, education. These are topics that uh, that actually are very important, and when we minimize their importance as we do in modern society, well, the end result is that most people don't even have the basic fundamental understanding of what life is all about. And also, most people who are in various educational institutions are generally not uh, so inclined uh, to take up, or they do it because they need to get a diploma so that they can get a job later on. So Vedic culture has, from the Bhagavatam, from verses like this one that we are reading this morning, gives us some very clear-cut understanding of these two major types of education, which can best be introduced when we live in a more natural setting. That means village uh, life, village lifestyle, as we were discussing yesterday. And of course, there's so many different, in addition to farming, in addition to taking care of cows, which is part of non-formal education, there are so many, what is known in India especially as different cottage industries. Gandhi was especially promoting this type of living, this type of lifestyle, this type of education. And Srila Prabhupada, as we know, would often refer to Gandhi's uh, concepts of village organization, which were very much in line with Vedic teachings. So this means that for us as devotees, it's very important that that we know what is the standard way of living, what is meant to be the standard occupation for the majority of people, and what type of education we should be providing for our children. And it's very difficult to actually introduce this in the present context of modern day society. Why? Easy enough to understand, because we're disconnecting with what Vedic culture is promoting in terms of being connected with cows and being connected with land. I know it's generally not at all easy for us initially to even conceive of this type of living situation, because we are so far removed from it. But we need to hear these descriptions. That's why we read the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, because they explain to us the basic philosophy of life. Especially Bhagavatam, goes into details as to, uh, especially in the seventh canto of the Bhagavatam, when Narada Muni very elaborately explains the whole system of the Varna and Ashrama. Prabhupada very clearly uh, explained and reminded us on many occasions that this was or is one of the purposes of the Krishna consciousness movement, to to revive, uh, to reintroduce what is described in the Vedic literatures in terms of organizing society. Uh, Therefore, it's very important for us as devotees to read about and meditate upon, discuss, and try to understand what is actually the meant to be the ideal standard of life, and which affects these two major areas actually in our life, which affects how we are meant to be educated. So therefore, the whole science of what we call Vedic education, and also how we are meant to meet our various material necessities of life, which means the economics, isn't it? The science of economics and the science of education, two of the four sciences that are described and that make up what we call Vedic traditional culture. And of course, science, which is, well, we cannot avoid these different sciences. We have, for example, politics in every country. No country can function or exist without politics, but it's a very different type of politic that we see today when we compare it to what we call Vedic politics. Vedic politics is a science in itself, where one gets a particular type of training, and there are specific duties and responsibilities how society should be organized, and what principles should be upheld, etc. like that. So Srila Prabhupada wanted that we understand, not only that we understand, but he wanted us to actually, he uses the word to revert or to come back to these more natural and standard ways of living. And it's something that cannot, of course, immediately be done, but we should know that it is our ideal, our standard, our model is the village of Vrindavan. That's why we've been discussing about what Prabhupada actually recommended that we do is create Vrindavan-like villages all over the world, because that is meant to be the norm. So this is a tremendous challenge, actually, for all of us, because all of this, especially in the initial stage, appears very alien, very far, very removed from how we're living today, naturally. But we can all understand how modern day society is uh, bringing about all kinds of situations which are not desirable. People are not happy the way they're living, generally speaking. Most people are just not aware of the basic philosophy of life. They're not aware uh, of Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so modern day society is in many ways very much lost, and therefore we have individuals who are very confused about what life is all about. We have, all of us actually, this great fortune of having received by Prabhupada's mercy this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam, which not only teaches us about spiritual subject matters, that we're a spirit soul, that we should engage in devotional service, etc., with a goal and the aim to go back home, back to Godhead, but also teaches us what is meant to be a more natural and simple and more scientific way of living as well. We have this dual responsibility to cultivate simultaneously spiritual knowledge, knowledge of the self, Atmagyan, and simultaneously we need to cultivate knowledge of how we are meant to live in this material world, what is meant to be the ideal lifestyle, the ideal education, the ideal occupation in terms of lifelong profession, so that we can, all of this is actually, we're getting a little glimpse of it in this verse this morning. All of this for the purpose of ultimately facilitating, helping us to more easily advance in Krishna consciousness. When we live a localized life, when we are in contact with Mother Nature, when we associate with cows, because Vedic culture means everybody every day is interacting with cows. Brahmanas, it's not that Brahmanas are only doing yagyas. Brahmanas also have cows in their homes. Many years ago, I was visiting villages in Bengal in the Namhata days, early days, when the program was started. And I would go to different villages, and I would see Brahmanas getting up early and milking cows. It's not that they only do fire jackets. They live, uh, most people, especially in those days, so many years back, majority, a much larger percentage of the population were in the villages. Unfortunately, that's reducing every day practically, and so they were having land. Kshatriyas have land. Everyone in the Vedic culture is intimately connected. We think sometimes Vaishya, only Vaishyas have land. Vaishyas were the ones that were overseeing and coordinating, and they would have, of course, the larger percentage of the population would be assisting, as Prabhupada says. Shudra, Shudra class are those who are not having the specific responsibility or duty that the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas have. They have many skills, they know many things, they can learn many things as well, but they are generally meant to assist and help, as Prabhupada explains, the other three classes within society. So it takes some time to understand this whole system that is described in the Bhagavatam. But Srila Prabhupada was very clear that he wanted us to study this traditional standard aspect of Sanatana Dharma. Is very directly connected with Sanatana Dharma, and we have in the present context of modern day society, we have a very important responsibility to actually ourselves live this philosophy that we're reading every day when we attend Bhagavatam classes, and we have a responsibility to demonstrate and to show people what is the more ideal way to live. Naturally, the topic of education, especially in our modern day society, is a very very big subject matter. The whole topic of society in general as well. I encourage the devotees to read these sections in the 10th canto, which actually explain more in detail, actually in this chapter, in other chapters as well, what are the activities of the residents of Vrindavan. Vrindavan is meant to be a model or ideal, and the more we understand, then we can attempt to gradually introduce this. We have a few minutes for any possible questions or comments that might be there. Yes.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the great class. I'm thinking, do you have any examples of successful devotee farm communities, like in the West, that you can think of? Like, I know there's Gitanagari, or there's you have one in Canada also in BC. I don't know if you can talk about that.
Whether we have successful communities whereby we can get some glimpse of what is being described.
Yeah, like an example.
Yeah, there are. I would say we are still. We have a number of communities, both in the east and the west. For example, in Europe, the Krishna Valley in Hungary has been developing quite nicely over the years, and there are. We have a community in Indonesia that's been, it's like when you start having 150 devotees for a number of years living somewhere and interacting, producing their own food, then you start having your own school, your educational system. We start getting a glimpse of how it can be. It's not only what we hear from the Bhagavatam, but we can go to some of these places and we can begin to see the type of natural interaction that takes place. Now, because modern day society is just, going in the opposite direction, and because it's not at all easy to just immediately, it takes a long time to actually attain levels of self-sufficiency where one is totally, not dependent on outside assistance. I don't think we have any such community that has reached that full level of self-sufficiency. I also don't know of any community where we have individuals who are identified or known as, Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas. We have Brahmanas in our, from the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada introduced and initiated devotees as brahmanas. Of course, probably majority of our initiated brahmanas within our ISKCON society are not doing political activities uh, as they should, as normally they are expected to. It's, as they say, a work in progress. It's a monumental task that we have because we're talking about, just basically turning the whole society around because we are, the governments in the world today, that have no understanding of these Vedic principles, are more and more going towards more urbanization, isn't it? More and more people are leaving the villages. We're becoming more mechanized. AI is on the verge of taking over the world right now, and we have no idea what kind of devastating effects this is going to bring. We're totally, to a large extent, modern society is very materialistic oriented, and therefore, what is being presented here in Vedic culture is perfectly, totally opposite to that. So there are communities at different levels, I would say, of development, and one can enter in contact, one can visit some of these communities to get some understanding. It will, Prabhupada told us, it's going to take some generations. So I don't think we can expect to see immediately the type of communities that are described here in the Bhagavatam. But we are definitely getting glimpses. I've been visiting for a number of years different communities, both in Europe and Asia, um, and North America also. And some have been around for many years and are not so much developed. Others who may not have been around for that many years, in some aspects are more developed. There's a whole variety. There's a need actually to, uh, I would say, share this information with our general rank and file devotees so that our devotees can have some understanding of what we are doing, what attempts are being made, where are the successes, and where are the failures or the weaknesses. So it's ongoing. I would say there's a definite need to give more more attention, uh, and many of our devotees have yet, I would say, have yet to understand uh, its importance, how important it is for us as both individuals and the society to to deepen our understanding of this whole aspect and to take relevant steps towards actually helping establish such communities, ultimately dividing villages like that. Yeah. Yes.
Here in the translation, he said that Krishna and Balaram were educated how to take care of the cows.
Yes.
But they also went to Sandipani Muni's ashram.
Yes.
And we heard also that they were studying along with Sudama Vipra,
Yes.
who was a Brahman.
Yes.
So what did they? They were not taught Vedas, Krishna and Balaram.
What is it?
But Krishna and Balaram also were taught.
Yeah. Okay, so the question is, or the comment is that Krishna and Balaram, when they were in Vrindavan, they took care of the calves, and then later on in Mathura, they went to the Sandipani ashram, and also there was Sudama Vikram who was there, a Brahmana. It's explained actually in the Bhagavatam specifically what they learned very briefly. And interestingly enough, it mentions how when they went Krishna Balaram, after going to Mathura to the Sanipati Muni ashram, they first learned the Vedas. Because when we study these Chatur Vidya, the four sciences, the first is Anvikshiki, the science of philosophy, which means the science learning the Vedas. So everyone, whether one is Brahmana, Kshatriya, or Vaishya, they are the ones who normally go to Gurukul, especially the Brahmanas and the Kshatriyas. So in the Sanipani Muni ashram, there are different types of Gurukulas. Some Gurukulas will be only for Brahmanas, others will be only for Kshatriyas, others will be for both, you see. So since Sudama Vikram was there, we can assume that it was a mixture of Kshatriyas and Brahmanas being trained. So initially, some of the subject matters would be common because they both learned the Vedas. And then after having this basic knowledge, then if one is a Brahmana, he would continue in a particular line, would actually spend more time and would cover more of the Vedic literatures that have to do with Brahminical subject matters. Whereas the Kshatriyas, like Krishna Balaram, would immediately, and that's mentioned also in the Bhagavatam, then after the Vedas, they would learn there is Puranas, and then uh, uh, they would learn matters pertaining to Kshatriya. So that whole system is not existing today. Even in India, I was visiting some Gurukulas and inquiring from the head of the headmasters whether they have any information or knowledge about Kshatriya Gurukulas. So they're practically non-existent in a lot of the society, even in a place like India. But Srila Prabhupada specifically, on a number of occasions, he told us how we need to formulate curriculum to revive Brahminical culture, to revive Kshatriya culture, to revive Vaishya culture, especially. And this requires that those who are more Brahminically inclined, those who have more understanding and knowledge of the Vedic sciences, that we formulate such curriculum and that we introduce that in Varnashram College. That's why specifically Prabhupada requested, close to 50 years ago, that we immediately establish in all of our centers in Varnashram College. It doesn't mean we need a separate building. Actually, the temples that we have in themselves can become Varnashram colleges. All we need is a few individuals, even one individual who has some particular knowledge and who can begin to teach it. So there's a very great need for us to do that. And it's only when we will be introducing such type of education, traditional education, in line with what is being described and recommended in Shastra, that we will begin to have a more clear understanding of these concepts. And the more complete understanding will only come when we actually step in that type of living condition. We cannot understand about cows or villages unless we go and spend time with cows and spend time in villages. One of the problems and limitations we have, I would say, in modern day society amongst our devotees, many devotees, a good number of devotees do speak about and interact on the subject matter of Varnashrama, but very often it remains unclear and confusing because very few devotees have gone or go to the field, literally, or to the villages or spend time, because it's only when we relocate, at least begin to interact with those living in villages, that we can more easily understand and grasp what what it actually means. Otherwise, it's like a lot of theory, a lot of armchair, philosophy going on, which is not really producing the kind of results that we're looking for. Any other? Yeah.
Was it quite common in the Vedic times? Like it was very difficult to recognize a varna of a particular individual, kind of mixture of all kinds of qualities.
Was it common that there'd be a mixture of qualities? Is it? No. I mean, not like today. Today, everything is very mixed, and it's very, one of the reasons why. One of the major reasons why it's difficult to understand even our own natures often is that we're not living in a natural type of environment. Our nature, our natural aptitudes, our natural inclinations more easily come out when we are in a more natural setting, interacting in a more natural way. And because largely modern day society, modern way of living, modern lifestyle is artificial in so many ways, and therefore it's more difficult. That's one reason. The other reason is that we're just not having that experience. We've not been born in a Vedic culture. We don't have that built-in kind of culture growing up, and also most of us are just far removed, physically removed from the more natural living condition, which is, again, for the vast majority of people, including the vast majority of our devotees, meant to be the villages. And we need to keep in mind how I often repeat this point, but I repeat it because it's important, that city life is meant to be for us as devotees our preaching basis, whereas country life or villages is meant to be our living basis. That's across the line. Majority of people are not meant to be. We discussed about this, I think, yesterday or the day before. Majority of people are not meant to live in cities because their occupation is meant to be connected with cows and land. Okay, we'll stop here for this morning. Thank you very much. Jai Gantara Srimad-Bhagavatam Ki Jai Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Either of our spiritual master has been always by